Hello everyone, welcome to our final Control R webinar on digital campaigns. My name is Matt Collins and I work for Platypus Digital. We're a digital marketing agency for charities and non-profits and other organizations doing great work. And this is the last webinar in our Control R series of webinars to spread digital skills as much as possible for charities and non-profits. And what we're going to talk about today is kind of a recap of some of what we've talked about before, and just to give you a bit more of a framework for how you bring all of these different platforms together, how you bring all of these things into a single coherent framework to create digital campaigns that either recruit new donors for you or get new campaigners or even service users to your charity. So we're going to be covering a bit of what we covered before and try to introduce a bit more of a framework for bringing it all together. So let's get started. So what we're going to talk about is what an integrated campaign actually is, why they are important to that they are integrated and not operating in separate channels, the importance of understanding your end goals and how conversions kind of relate to this and how they can give you focus in your campaign. Planning your campaign and deciding which channels to use, that's mostly going to take the form of kind of a recap of each channel and the sort of top things that you can do across each one, and setting KPIs and tracking your progress. So giving you a bit more of a sort of numbers-based approach to what you're doing and the kind of focus that that can bring to your campaign. So what is an integrated campaign? You know, what are we talking about when we talk about integrated campaigns? Well, really, we're looking at a campaign to achieve a particular end goal, one that uses lots of different channels. They might be online and offline, or they might all just be online. But ultimately, they're reaching lots of different stages of a supporter journey, and we'll come on to talk about what a supporter journey actually looks like. It's one that delivers consistent messages, so it's one that has got a single kind of message that it's trying to get across to the end user and acknowledges the fact that that user isn't just going to be experiencing that organization on a single channel. You know, there isn't anyone out there who only ever looks at your website and would never ever consider seeing you on Google or on Facebook or in one of the many other channels that they experience on a day-to-day life. You know, everyone has smartphones, everyone walks around their city and sees billboards, everyone sees TV. So we're talking about campaigns that that go across all of those channels, and one that works towards a specific goal. So that is something that you decide as an organization what you're trying to achieve. Usually that's one of the reasons that the campaign is time limited in the first place. You know, it's a specific end goal that you're working towards, and hopefully when that end goal has been achieved, then the campaign can kind of come to an end. Although of course you see some campaigns that will run for several years because what they can achieve sometimes is underestimated, and the targets that were set at the start of that campaign are quickly achieved, so they move on to new and even higher, even better targets. So those campaigns can be ongoing. But broadly speaking, we're talking about time-limited campaigns that work towards specific goals. So the different types of media that you might see involved in multi-channel integrated campaigns would be paid media, owned media, and earned media. So paid media, as the name suggests, is media that you pay for. Owned media is more the platforms that you own yourselves, and then earned media is kind of coverage that you ultimately sort of earn by virtue of how popular and how interesting your campaign actually is. So over on the paid media side, you might be using channels like PPC advertising, Google AdWords, social media advertising, that kind of thing. Over on the owned side, your website, which can be found with SEO, your social media presence, and your email provider. That'd be the sort of platforms where you own the audience, as it were. And over on the earned side, you might be getting shares and reposts of some of your top content. Your bloggers, external bloggers might be covering what you've done because it's so interesting and so great. And you might be getting online PR, whereby various PR outlets, newspapers, magazines, cover what you're doing online, and so you can get lots of traction that way. So that's broadly how you might see a split on the online space between the different channels. So let's talk a bit about the supporter journey. You know, what sort of framework are you working towards with an integrated campaign? Well, for us, the best model you can be using is one that Google are big proponents of, and it's one called See, Think, Do, and Care. You might also have seen similar journeys in the past that like ADA, you know, attention, interest, desire, and action. You might have seen various fundraising focused ones like the one here of awareness, consideration, donation, retention, and advocacy. And broadly, they do the same thing. But what we really like about See, Think, Do, Care is how simple it makes everything. You know, at the C stage, you're basically getting your message across to what's known as the largest addressable qualified audience. So that's the biggest number of people who could possibly be interested in your campaign. You know, you can define how you qualify that audience, but it's important that you qualify them in some way, because if you've got a campaign that's just going to everyone, you know, everyone's going to be interested in what we have to say, then you're probably casting your net a bit too wide. You know, you need to have a think about what age are the people that are most interested likely to be, what professions have they got, where are they living, where are they working, that kind of thing. At the third stage, you've got people in that group who are thinking of making a purchase. So people who are thinking of making a donation to your campaign, people who are thinking about doing something about a particular social issue. At the do stage, you've got people who are ready to make that leap, to take that action. So that's someone ready to make a donation there and then, and ready to make a donation to you. And then at the care stage, it's more about people who have done it already. You know, maybe made one purchase from your shop or one donation, and it's all about sort of cultivating their loyalty and ensuring their retention in the organization. So you've got the See, Think, Do, Care model, taking people along the journey, and it's your job as someone running an integrated campaign to create content for people at each of those stages of the journey. So if you think about a lot of campaigns, they just focus on the do stage. So they assume that everyone who sees the campaign is going to be ready to donate. So they send out lots of donate now, sign up now, you know, quick buy, buy, buy kind of calls to action. In fact, there's people at previous stages in the funnel who are just not at that point yet. And so they need information to help them move on to the next stage. So think carefully about what people at earlier stages in the journey might want, and try to ensure that you create content that's appropriate to where they're at. So why are integrated campaigns important for that reason? Well, as you can see, there's many touch points in terms of the channels that people can experience your organization on. There should be a seamless supporter experience, you know, seamless journey across those different stages. Not everyone is in the same place online. You know, we could assume that we're all on Facebook or we're all looking at our websites, but in fact, it's a much more complex picture than that. If you have a multi-channel digital campaign, then you've got higher control for better conversion rates and return on investment. So that simply means that if you have a good idea of where your content is going, then you're able to select the channels that are converting best. And ultimately, for a fundraising campaign in particular, that leads to a higher return on investment. There's an ever-changing digital landscape out there, and the channels that you use are going to vary, but the messages shouldn't. And the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. So while you might be looking at lots of different channels in isolation, if you're able to get it right across all of those different channels, then the results are going to make your efforts well worth it. So conversions, just a quick word about that. Why are they important? Well, first of all, they're basically just online actions that are valuable to you. You know, that might be making a donation on the website, that might be someone signing up to your campaign action, but ultimately it's whatever is valuable to you as an organization. You decide what the conversion is for your campaign, and that's going to give your campaign essential focus. You know, that's going to get everyone on the same page. Here's what this campaign is aiming to do. Because if you have too many online actions that people can take, then ultimately people are just going to be sort of confused by the messages they see and are much less likely to take any action at all. So choose what that goal is very carefully. So here's a few different types of fundraising campaigns that you might have and what the conversion might be for each one. So for an appeal, you might be looking for a cash donation. For a regular donor acquisition campaign, then you might be looking for someone to make a direct debit sign up on your website, or maybe you're just looking for a lead. So that might be someone giving you their phone number with a request for a call back to find out why they should actually sign up to a direct debit with your charity. So there's lots of different types, and you'll see that the ones we've chosen here, they're the ones that can be easily measured and easily quantified, and that really helps when you're planning the reporting for your campaign and gives your campaign that extra focus. So as an example, you might choose a goal that is SMART, and ideally it should always be, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-based, all of that stuff. So an example might be for a fictional campaign, Wear a Hat Day, to get 450 online signups to Wear a Hat Day between May and October 2018. So is that a SMART goal? So yes, 450 online signups bits, well, it's really measurable. And for the fictional charity in question, then that's definitely attainable. It's got to be something ideally that, while it is attainable, is also a stretch goal. You don't want to do what's known as sandbagging, whereby you set a really attainable target and that you're going to achieve it. If you really want to stretch the organization, it should be the sort of goal that you look at and go, oh, that's going to be hard. That's going to be a stretch for us to achieve. Because if you've got that stretch goal in place, then you're more likely to achieve more than you thought you could. And is that a time-based goal? Yeah, we've got a good time period that we're looking to achieve that goal within. It's also, of course, very specific and very relevant, but just to give you an idea of what good targets and good conversions actually look like. So here's a quick recap of some of the digital channels that you might be creating content for in an integrated campaign. So if we go back to our original See, Think, Do, Care model that you use in the planning stages of your campaign, and you're trying to think of content that matches the people who are at each of those stages, here's how some of those channels might break down into that model, and here's the types of sort of content you might be aiming at each. So at the C stage, you're going to be putting content out on relatively inexpensive or free channels, so that you're not paying too much just to reach people who might not even be interested in what your campaign is all about. Then at the think stage, and of course there's going to be overlap between some of these. At the think stage, people might be interested on your email list, for example. That's a really kind of underused resource that charities have, because you've got these many thousands of people who've already, just by the fact that they're on your email list, gone past the C stage. They're people who are thinking about doing something, and you've got a really big opportunity to get them behind your campaign and to get them involved in what it is you're trying to achieve. At the do stage, it's going to be mostly happening on your website. The other channels like email and AdWords and Facebook advertising, well, they tend to be pointing content, or pointing people to your website content. That's where people can actually sign up. That's where people can actually donate. That's where people can actually share what you have to say. Then at the care stage, it's more about stewardship and cultivation. That's more likely to be happening on online communities, on your social media channels, and via email stewardship campaigns as well. So that's roughly where your channels might fit in. Now, ultimately, you're going to be creating cross-channel content, and that's really the sort of secret, I think, to creating strong, integrated digital campaigns. You need to be creating content that's going to work across the board. So ultimately, the way you do that is by signing off the key campaign messages first. You can't have people who manage the different channels, manage social media or manage your email channels. They can be working in isolation. You need to have the campaign planned at a reasonably senior level, and it be well understood what the background to the campaign is, what the calls to action actually are. Everyone should be clear what the main call to action for this campaign is. And then when that kind of foundation content is signed off, when it's understood what the tone of voice is, what the calls to action are, then the channel experts can come in and create that channel native content. The email manager, if you have one, is going to know what works on email. Whoever is managing your social media channels gets what sort of tone of voice works well on your social channels. So they can take that foundation content and create that channel native content, the stuff that's going to work for your audience on that channel. And from there, really, you want to start, breaking it down into a content calendar. And within that, you're going to be deciding what works on each channel. You're going to have the channels down one side and then dates along the other side. And you're going to start plotting what content is going to go out and when. You might have different stages to the journey. You might be announcing different celebrity support if you have it. You might be launching different case studies whenever they become available. Whatever the main sort of dates are, you're going to start plotting the content that is supporting each of those dates. Now, include always on and time limited content where relevant. So you might be making big announcements in various stages of the campaign. So you want to have that time-limited content planned well in advance. And then there might be some always-on advertising. So you might have Facebook advertising that's running just in the area that you're running the campaign in. You also might have Google AdWords ads serving for people who are searching for that particular topic the whole time. So there's going to be a difference between what is responding to sort of spikes in interest. You know, if a news story is going to be breaking in a particular day, then you can expect to see a spike in interest, and you want to have a well-timed email going out that amplifies that interest. And really crucially here, and I think this is probably the biggest thing you can do to create an integrated campaign that works across lots of different channels, is to work on it together. You know, if as well as avoiding having your channel managers sort of working in silos, if you actually get in a room together, get everyone together to work on this content calendar, and get some post-its out, and get a whiteboard and start sketching out where everything's going to happen together, then you're much more likely to end up with a campaign that's got consistent messages across all the channels, that looks similar in all the different channels, and ultimately it just makes an awful lot more sense to the people who are viewing the campaign. And the other thing about it is, as well as it being much more consistent, engaging experience for the people seeing the campaign, it's also just much more enjoyable to work on. It's more fun for the people at your charity to come together around a common cause, around a sort of common goal that you're all looking to achieve, to get in a room together and to feel like you're actually part of the cause and part of the movement that's making a difference in this area. Ultimately, that's why a lot of people work for charities. You may well have been attracted to the charity you work for initially by the cause and by the idea of working with other people who share your vision and share what you want to achieve for the future. So just working on a campaign together in the same room is one of the best ways that you can do that, which also, of course, has knock-on effects on staff retention and staff morale as well. So just to run into a quick recap of each channel then, and what we'll work on the various channels. So on your website, on the campaign landing page, that's the web page that people are going to go to get a summary of the campaign itself. You want to keep it simple. You want to have one call to action. You want to have one simple form, if it's going to be a sign-up form or a donation form, and you want it to have as few steps as possible. Don't ask for people's address or birthday or favorite color if it's not information that you need to complete the conversion, whether it's a donation or a sign-up or whatever. And just include an image. Try to include a nice engaging image, something that features people, something that people are going to connect with whenever they visit the landing page. On the SEO side of things, making your campaign easy to find and visible to Google. Ultimately, you've got to write content that people will want to read, not just the stuff that you want to say. It needs to be either stuff that hasn't been said before, or a whole new angle on what you've been talking about for a long time before that. It needs to be just good content. It needs to be interesting. It needs to have an interesting title. It doesn't have to be kind of clickbaity. 7 things about this cause that you just won't believe until you click here, kind of thing. But it does need to be interesting and engaging and well written. You want to share that content on your social media channels in particular, and ask others to share that content as well. Don't just limit it to your organizational social media feeds. If you've got celebrity ambassadors, even if they're just local celebrities, that's absolutely fine. Never underestimate how much reach and potential visibility those celebrity ambassadors might have. Get them to share it as well, because those are the things that's the sort of social signals that Google looks for when it's deciding what content to promote on its search results pages. The thing about this one is it's a little bit more of a slow burn. So if you've got a very time-limited campaign that's launching very soon, SEO might not be the most important thing. And if that's the case, then you'd want to just focus on our landing page tips, making it nice and simple, nice and clear, and really engaging. On your organic social media feeds, ultimately you want to reach and engage new and existing followers. I think mostly it's going to be existing followers, but if you ask the people who follow your page already to share your content, then that can increase the reach to new followers. Ultimately, it's about creating a range of interesting content that doesn't have too many asks. Over on your organic social media channels, people don't always respond to asks in the best way. They want interesting, engaging content that they can really get on board with, but not necessarily do something about there and then. So just be mindful that you shouldn't overload people with too many asks. Give your community useful and fun content. If there's some sort of fun aspect to your campaign, make sure that you've got it out there on social, because people are always looking for fun stuff to consume on social media. And try to use as many images and native videos as you can, because if you have a video uploaded directly to Facebook, then that's going to get way more engagement than if it's just sitting on YouTube and you're linking to it from your Facebook page. And use things like Facebook Live in that respect as well. If you've got an interview happening or you've got a great event, then get someone to charge up their phone, go into Facebook Live, and just try and record it and share it to everyone on your social channels from there. Think about whether you've got a campaign hashtag. This isn't something you always need for your campaign, but it's something that can really gather conversation together around a single place. Use a social tone of voice. Try not to be too formal on social media, because the vibe there is much more informal than otherwise it could be. Have your key messages and a crisis plan in place. So if it all kicks off, and if you have a PR team, this is where they can help. But if not, just think about, what could go wrong here? What are the risks? And address those beforehand in your campaign planning stages. Remember what you're trying to say with key messages, and make sure you create content that actually says it. If you're using paid social media, so Facebook advertising, for example, try to plan your targeting carefully and make sure you're reaching people that are actually the key audience for this campaign. Don't just promote it to the world and its wife, because that doesn't mean that just because they can see it doesn't mean they should see it, or that they're most likely to engage with it. Remember, if you reach people on paid social media who aren't interested in your interested in what you have to say, then in a way it's a waste of money, because you've paid to reach them, but ultimately they didn't really care. Use any audience insights that you might have, even if that's just a case of talking to anyone who works in the organization about who typically supports your charity, what your volunteers are generally like, what age they are, what kind of things they're interested in, and use that to inform your audience insights. And then try to split those audiences out to see who converts the best. This is a little bit in depth, but if you're able to target lots of different age groups, for example, with the same content, and you've got the right tracking in place, then you can quickly see who's most interested in what you have to say, and then just focus all of your effort on getting donations, for example, from that group. Try to test different ad copy and creative to improve that click-through rate, as well as testing different audiences. You might want to test the words that you put out in your actual ads, the pictures that you include in them, to see if they make a big difference on how many people click through to the campaign landing page. And if one is clearly performing better than another, then that's the one you want to put all your budget into. Track everything, because that's what's going to make a big difference here, and continually optimize. See who's winning the tests that you're putting out there, and make sure you start favoring budget to the winners of those tests. On AdWords, it's about reaching audiences during their online searches and activities. If you have a Google Ad Grants account, then this is a great opportunity to use some of that free spend. If you're using a paid account, then consider carefully what budget you've got for that, and when you're going to stop spending actual money. Try to split out your ad groups based on search intent. Think about what the people who might be searching on Google would be looking for, and how you can best meet their needs. And then try to choose a few relevant keywords for each ad group. What sort of topics might people be interested in when doing searches that they might click on your campaign if they see an ad for it. And reach audiences during their online searches and activities through making sure there's keywords and a good USP in your ad copy. Think about what's unique about your campaign and try to emphasize that in your ads as much as possible. And then again, test your ad copy and consider retargeting as well. That's bringing people back to the website when they've been there previously. With email, it's all about writing compelling subject lines, making your emails concise and action-focused. Keep it short. Don't do huge, long newsletters where your campaign is just one of lots of stories. Try to just put out one message in your email instead of burying it in lots of others. And try to plan your content using an email calendar. This is where your kind of content calendar across the board is going to come into play. Your email calendar will hopefully dovetail into that really nicely. Once they've completed this campaign conversion or action, email's got a really big part to play. You know, they can be engaged with a further series of emails that can be sent out automatically, and you could have pre-written long before the campaign actually starts. So if someone makes a donation and gives you their email address, you can set it up so that MailChimp or Dotmailer or whatever is automatically sending out a series of emails to that person that engages them further. It might have more case studies, it might have more stories from users in the field about what's happening in the campaign, but obviously ensure that you've got opt-in from your new subscribers. You need to make sure that people have actually consented to getting email communications from you before you actually start sending them out. But email is a really great opportunity to reach people at the care stage. So here's a quick case study then of a campaign that we ran for a charity called Medical Aid for Palestinians a good while back, to give you an idea of what sort of integrated campaign content can actually look like. So it was an offline DM appeal that they ran, and we were kind of adding online elements to it. You know, we wanted to create a sort of digital version of this campaign, which was called a Lifeline campaign. We did it over lots of different channels. As you can see here, some of the imagery associated with it is imagery that we built on as well. So we started off with a nice simple landing page. So you can see there's a really clear image here. It's really people focused. It's really big. The logo is nice and clear at the top of the page. The campaign logo is really clear at the top right of the page as well. We just kept the copy really short. You know, we just tried to get the point across really quickly. And we had a nice big call to action button there. You know, we were clear that we're looking for donations of actual money for this campaign. So we made sure that the call to action button reflected that. And then over on Facebook ads, you can see there's real similarity here with the landing page. You know, there's some of the same types of photos are being used. You'll notice that red is actually, as it happens, is sort of a key color on the image itself. So that really resonates with the brand colors that Medical Aid for Palestinians use. We tried to keep the headlines nice and concise, and also tried to test different approaches in those headlines. So you can see on the left-hand side, we've got more of a statement-based headline. And then on the right-hand side, we try to ask the question a little bit more. We found that asking questions can produce some really interesting results when it comes to Facebook ads and Google ads alike, because it just frames things in a slightly different way and encourages people to click through. We also did Google ads, so you can see we've got text ads at the top, whereby we're continuing those main calls to action and giving people a reason to take those calls to action. And then at the bottom, it was more about the display ad side of things. So the text was even shorter, where it was present at all. And we just tried to make sure that the imagery was seen as much as possible. So you can see we're giving people a really consistent experience. If you're seeing the display ads, you might have seen the email as well. If you're seeing the Google ads, you might have seen the Facebook ads as well. So just trying to repeat the kind of key messages, the brand colors, and just trying to really make a kind of a big dent in the user's mind, as it were. Apparently you need about 7 touch points before you decide to actually convert on something. So if there's a new brand of cola out there, then you need to see that brand of cola 7 times before you'll think about choosing it over the more well-known types of cola. So we're really trying to make sure we're reaching people in multiple places. Then in the emails, you'll start to see a theme here. We're trying to keep it nice and consistent in terms of brand colors and imagery. But on the email, we've got more chance to explain our story and to explain what the need is and to explain what the person can actually do to help the campaign. So we've got nice clear call to action. We're also taking the opportunity to explain the brand story a little bit more and provide more engaging content for people who are considering donating, especially the people who are already on the list. Those are the people who are most interested in the organization. So we think they're a really big opportunity when it comes to getting them to sign up to this campaign. So in summary then, kind of integrated campaign tips. This has just been a really quick overview on how you might plan a campaign that goes across lots of different channels, that builds on the offline campaigns that you might already be running, and one that provides really consistent experience for the supporter and for the people who might be seeing your campaign. Make sure the offline and online activities complement each other. If this is an offline campaign, then make sure that the sort of DM packs that are going out or the press releases that you're writing are consistent with the messages that you put out on your digital channels. Try to make sure they complement each other as well as being consistent. The images that you use in your landing pages should be similar to ones you use in your email, should be similar to the ones that you're passing on to journalists, etc., etc. And ideally adding an extra element to the story, because you've got an opportunity to engage people a little bit more on the online channels, depending what they are. Really, I can't get this across enough, really try to decide on a conversion that's going to keep your campaign focused. It's really easy to think, well, we'll do a donation campaign, but there might also be a kind of brand awareness benefit from this. So we're going to set some brand awareness KPIs as well. Try to think of any extra benefits that you get from the campaign as just that, just incidental benefits that you can sort of mop up in the wrap-up report. Really, you want to choose one call to action, one thing that you're trying to get people to do in the campaign, and just stick with that as much as possible. Plan the audiences that are going to see the campaign. If this campaign is just there to reach everyone, then it's likely to reach no one, because if you're not giving any more thought to your audience than just thinking, well, just people, just anyone who might be interested, then it's important to have a bit more of a think about who's really going to be interested in this campaign in terms of age, in terms of interests, in terms of location, particularly if you're a charity that doesn't have national or global reach. There's going to be only people in your immediate area that are really going to be interested in the campaign, which isn't a disadvantage. It's actually a really big opportunity to keep much needed focus to what you're trying to achieve. Tailor audiences for each audience and for each channel. So if you have different audiences in your campaign, then try to tailor what you've got to say to those channels, to those audiences by channel. So you might have an audience that's more interested in philanthropic giving and charities, and then another audience that knows you already, but is just interested in finding new ways to help. So you might tailor the messages a little bit to give the people who are less familiar with your charity more of an introduction to who you are and what you do before you hit them with a call to action. And finally, really get everyone involved in creating the content. There's going to be lots of people at your charity who've got something to contribute here. There are going to be people who can write email copy, who can write web copy, who can even help write tweets in a nice kind of Twitter or social media content planner. Get everyone together, get everyone sort of gathered around various computers, set everyone a time limit of half an hour to blast out something or the first draft of something. It's a really good opportunity to bring the charity together around a common goal to try and achieve something really tangible together. Now, it doesn't have to be ice bucket challenge. It doesn't have to be no makeup selfie. Your campaign doesn't need to have that scale to it at all. It's only a very, very, very tiny minority of charities who kind of win that sort of viral campaign lottery and benefit from something like that. You can do something much more sustainable, much more targeted, and one that actually results in long-term relationships between you and the people who supported that campaign, which is something that a lot of the viral campaigns aren't able to actually achieve. So ultimately, create consistent messages, make sure you've got a cross-channel campaign in place, and try to bring everyone together to create the content itself. So I'm just going to see quickly if there are any questions about campaigns themselves. So we have a question that says, on paid social, do you have any suggestions on what's a good budget to set for ad testing? Also frequency, and how often should we do paid/test paid social? So lots of questions to answer there. Well, it really just depends on the budget that you have. With paid Facebook advertising, for example, the bigger the budget you have, then the more reach Facebook will give you and the more impressions your ads will get. And that will give you more data to play with. So the more money you can throw at Facebook, the better. Some campaigns that we've seen only have a budget of maybe £10 a day or even less than that. Others are going to have more like hundreds of pounds a day. Really just depends, what you've got to spend. The more you spend, the more results you'll get, and the more insights you'll see from what you're putting out there. What was the audience for the Palestine charity? How did that affect the campaign? I'd have to look into that and get back to you. Ultimately, we did a mix of audiences so that we had the best chance of success. So it was a combination of people that were familiar with the organization, or maybe even just familiar with the cause, and then some people who were probably less familiar. Now, ultimately, the thing to remember is that every charity has a core of people who are warm to that charity and warm to the cause, and it's really, really important that you try to put as much effort, if not more, into engaging those people as you do cold audiences. And that's one of the things that we tried to do with this campaign. We tried to make sure that the people who were committed to the charity, knew about the charity already, were given the chance to support it. You mustn't focus too much on the people who don't know about your organization and sort of new people, although they should get attention where possible. You should always make sure you're giving as much attention to your warm audiences as possible too. And do you have any examples of good content at an earlier stage, e.g. before do? I don't have any examples right in front of me, but I would imagine that it's going to be more about top tips articles. So let's say, just imagine, just as one example, let's say it's heart health charity. So it's a charity that kind of does research into heart disease, for example. Do content is going to be, donate to prevent heart disease and to, find a cure for heart disease sooner. If it's going to be think content, it might be someone who's thinking of supporting some charity because a friend of a friend perhaps had a heart issue. And so they're just, at the back of their mind thinking maybe they should support this. So maybe then it's about giving them just useful content, content that they can use in their day-to-day life. So maybe 5 top tips for a healthier heart, or 5 things you can do to reduce the risk of heart disease, or something like that. Those kind of numbered lists are always extremely useful. If they fall into a particular category of some kind, I can't think of an example offhand, but if you can create content that's going to be interesting and informative but doesn't have any call to action, then you're going to hit people at those stages a little bit more. Now, at the C stage, where people aren't even thinking about that kind of thing, really it's about brand awareness, and that's where you see like companies will sponsor particular events where there's not even useful content that they're putting out there. They're just putting their name out there, so that the next time that the audience comes across that organization, when they themselves are at the think or the do stages, then they're more likely to choose that organization. That's a bit more complex, but if you're thinking about think content, then try to create really useful content for people who who aren't necessarily ready to convert there and then. And how successful return are you likely to get with cold audiences? That's another tricky question. It really depends on how compelling a campaign ask you've actually got. If you've got something that's really it's really sort of boring and that people have seen it all before, then that's not going to resonate too much with cold audiences. If you've got other techniques that help improve return from cold audiences, things like showing the people they know or people like them have already donated or supported that campaign, then that's really helpful. Anything that shows that the sort of world at large are engaging with this campaign. I mean, the viral campaigns I mentioned, like Ice Bucket Challenger, are really good examples of that. That's something that had a really broad appeal, so cold audiences were actually really engaged with that campaign. But ultimately, you're going to get a less good return from cold audiences than you will from warm audiences. That just stands to reason. And if you're a small charity with a relatively limited reach, then you've got great opportunity, because people who support small charities, very often they're the most committed supporters out there. They've got a really personal relationship with the staff in that charity. They've got personal relationships with the people who work there, so they're going to be very committed supporters. So think, what else can that warm audience do? How can they amplify this campaign, or how can they just spread it to their own networks? Because if you think about your supporters and you think how many friends just they have on Facebook, or in their WhatsApp groups or whatever, then that's a real opportunity to massively increase the reach of your charity's message. That's all the time we've got for today's webinar. I hope you find it useful. If you want to find out some more information on what we do, we're at platypusdigital.com, and we're also on Twitter at platypusdigi. I hope you find this webinar useful. You'll be able to find all the other webinars on the website as well. If you've got any questions, please feel free to tweet us, and we'll do our best to get to any questions that are asked. So thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you again soon.